I feel like everybody needs to grab a pen and a piece of paper. And this is definitely one of those podcast episodes that I know every single parent is going to be forwarding to their kids who have interviews. Because we are about to get the cheat sheet, everybody, for how to nail charisma, whether you're in a virtual meeting, whether you're in an interview, whether you're sending an email. And so let's go through the cues.
All right.
What is the easiest way to walk through these?
All right.
Do you want to go by warmth? Do you want to go by how do you want to do this? Because there's a lot to cover.
Yeah. So let's do it by time. So what I want to do is actually I want to do the first 10 seconds of your video, the first minute of your video. That actually helps us break it down, because actually the first 10 seconds are really important. The first 10 seconds of you being on camera.
Really?
So, yeah, because it sets you up for the rest of the time. So if you can nail your first 10 seconds, it makes the next hour easier.
Wow. So what do we have to do?
Okay.
What are we doing? So you're about to tell us in the first 10 seconds of a Zoom meeting, you must do this in order to be influential. What do you do?
Okay, first 10 seconds. And I want you to code this if you did this on your last video. So here's what you should do and here's what you should code. Number one, in the first second, you should try to show your hands. I know this sounds really weird, but they use eye tracking studies, and they found that one of the first places the brain looks when they're trying to gauge someone's warmth is hands. Why? This is actually a survival mechanism. Back in our caveman days, if we were approached by a stranger caveman, we wanted to see if they were carrying a rock or a spear, right? So this still remains. Something interesting happens. I'll do a little experiment for you. So if you're watching the video, I'm going to hide my hands. If you're listening, I'm hiding my hands right now.
Yeah.
The moment you can't see someone's hands. So if I were to give this entire interview with my hands behind my back, something interesting would happen in your brain and Mel's brain, which is that your amygdala would begin to activate. And that's because when you can't see someone's hands, you wonder, what is she holding? What's her intention? And so the longer I keep my hands behind my back, the more distracted you should become with the fact that my hands are behind my back. You want them to come back out, right?
Yes.
Okay, they're back, right?
Okay, there they are. Hello.
So much better. So this is a survival mechanism. The moment you hop on video, walk on stage, walk into a boardroom,
like put your hands up, like, hey, everybody.
Hey, good morning. Nice to see you.
Okay, so the first 10 seconds, we turn on, the camera's coming on, we put the hands up. Hi, everybody.
Or just one, right? Like a little wave, nice to see you. You walk into a crowded restaurant to see your date. Hey, good to see you. That hand gesture immediately deactivates their fear processing. Easy, okay? So I want them visible. Second little bonus tip here is the space, the distance. And I literally want you to measure this. The distance between your nose and the camera. The reason for this is because in person, we are very aware of what's called proxemics zones. Proxemic zones are the space between people. So we know, and this is a little bit different culture to culture. So hand gestures, universally, we like to see hands, but culture to culture, we also like to know what's the distance between people. So I highly recommend make sure your camera is at least 1.5 feet away from your face.
Okay.
The reason for this is because imagine if I were to give, now I'm going to get really close to the camera. Imagine if I were to give my entire interview really close, you'd be like, Vanessa, back up, right?
Oh my God. I totally like lean into the camera. I have no space above my head. I like my whole face right in there. So maybe I got to back off a little bit on the camera.
Let's talk about this for a second.
Okay.
So there are no bad cues in the sense of they're all purposeful. When you are really close, and I love your videos, I've seen your close-up videos, you should know on purpose, if you are very close to the camera, right up in your face, you are signaling intimacy. You are signaling, I'm right up in it. And that's because as humans, there are 4 different proxemic zones: the public zone, the social zone, the personal zone, and the intimate zone. We reserve the intimate zone, which is 0 to 18 inches away, 0 to 1.5 feet away, for people we feel really close with. So our partners, our parents, so does our best friends. And so actually, when I watch your videos where you're really close, I feel like we're besties. Mel, tell me everything. So I would say reserve those videos for your intimate moments.
Okay.
You're literally signaling that. So in a normal Zoom call, I want you at least 1.5 feet away. It also helps you show your hands, right? It helps have those gestures.
So easy. Smart. Okay. Easy. So the first 10 seconds, everybody, we got the hands up and we got to be about 1.5 feet away.
Yep.
Because this is, oh, and there's more?
Oh, there's more. There's so
Okay.
much more. Okay, second, vocal. So that was a nonverbal cue. I want you to make sure you are not accidentally using the question inflection on your name or an important information. The question inflection is when we go up at the end of our sentence. So it sounds like we're asking a question. And so often we found in our lab that people would use the question inflection in the first 10 seconds, which made people doubt them. So I want to share this study because this study gave me the chills when I first heard it. And I think it's so incredibly important for people who are listening who want to be taken seriously. So what they did in this study, I promise I won't get too into the science. Very simply, they brought doctors into their lab and they wanted to know if people would change their perceptions of charisma based on their voice tone. So they asked the doctors to record 10-second voice tone clips. So these clips, they had to say their name, where they worked, and their specialty. So it sounded like this. I use my lipstick as an example. Hi, my name is Dr. Edwards. I specialize in oncology, and I work at Children's Presbyterian Hospital. They took these clips and they warbled the words. So you could hear the volume, the pace, the cadence, but not the actual words being said. So that sounded like this. Okay. They asked participants to then rate these doctors on warmth and competence.
Based on the warbled thing that you just did?
Yes. So imagine that I just did that. And then I asked you, do you like this person? Is this person smart? So participants rated these gobbledygook clips on, do they like this person smart? They found the doctors who had the lowest warmth and competence ratings had the highest rate of malpractice lawsuits.
What?
The doctors with the lowest warmth and competence ratings, simply based on their voice tone, had the highest rate of malpractice lawsuits. This implies that we don't just dislike people based on their skills. We dislike people based on our perception of their skills, and that happens within the first few seconds of hearing them. The biggest pattern, it's such a shockwave through the community because these are doctors who are very well trained. What they found was patterns. There were certain doctors who across the board were rated as highly charismatic from gobbledygook. And there were certain doctors that over and over again, they were rated as not very smart, not very likable. Here was the biggest pattern, uptalk. The doctors who had an introduction like this, hi, my name is Dr. Edwards. I specialize in oncology and I work at Children's Presbyterian Hospital. Right? What it did is it changes the way that we listen. They found that when we hear the question inflection accidentally used on a statement, our prefrontal cortex shifts from listening to scrutinizing. We think, why did they just question themselves? I guess I should question them. We hear this all the time in sales calls where someone is killing it in a pitch. This is the income, the last I, or in a salary negotiation. I'd love to work for your company. I think I'd be a great fit for you. I love your mission. And I'm really looking for a salary range of over $100,000.
Oh, everybody, did you hear that question?
Yeah.
I'm really looking for a salary range of $100,000.
When you ask your price, you are begging people to negotiate with you. You're telling people, I don't really believe this number and you shouldn't believe it either. So what happens in the first 10 seconds is we're nervous, right? We're really nervous. We've been holding our breath. We're waiting for Zoom call. And so we accidentally give away all of our vocal power in the first 10 seconds. We say, hey, everyone, my name is Vanessa. We'll get started in a few.
Whoa. Okay. This is why it's important to tape a Zoom call you're on, everybody.
Yeah.
Because now you have 3 research-backed, incredibly subtle but profound behavior changes that you need to make immediately. Hands up. You got to have the right distance, which is 1 foot to 1.5 foot, nose to camera. No uptalk, everybody. And I would imagine that most people don't realize that they do it.
No idea. That's why coding is so important. That's why seeing yourself, that's why we don't realize when we walk into a salary negotiation, or we walk into a pitch meeting with a client, or we go on a date and we think it went well, right? How often have people been sideswiped and they think, yeah, I think that went great, but I didn't get a call back, or I didn't get a second date. It's because you are accidentally telling the world how to treat you. And if you undersignal warmth, people don't like you. If you undersignal competence, people don't take you seriously.
And the up talking, everyone, is when you're under signaling competence. You might be the most competent and qualified person, but if you walk into that interview and you don't, not sure, like my last job was great. I think I'd do great here. 100,000, that'd be great. Like if you just shot yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
And you don't even realize it because you don't hear it. I bet people do this with dating all the time.
All the time. And the problem is it's a permission-seeking behavior. So if we really get down to the root cause of it, which is one thing that fascinates me, is this is appeasement body language, right? So this is, do you like me? Do you agree with me? So oftentimes highly warm people who really, really desperately want to be liked use more up talk because they're asking, do you agree? Do you like me? The crazy thing is it actually has the opposite effect, right? So that I also want you to get really to the root cause of if you hear yourself do up talk. And by the way, please go listen to your voicemail. So go listen to your voicemail or any voice recordings. If you've sent any voice recordings or voice memos in the past few days, go re-listen to them and see if you accidentally use up talk, and go re-record. Go re-record.
So how do you coach somebody who has a style of speaking where they naturally end sentences with this up talk? So it's almost like you've got a statement and as you speak it, it sounds like a question at the end.
Yes.
And do women do this more than men?
Yes. So women do this more than men. Also, the research finds that women typically, but not always, are seen as higher in warmth. And that's because from a very young age, women are often taught to be liked. And so they tend to dial up their warmth earlier. Typically, but not always, men are seen as higher in competence. And that's because often men are told to be right. So we also have to be aware of those gender differences. So yes, women typically more often use up talk or high warmth. So luckily, this is actually a very easy thing to fix. So we're going to do it. We're going to do it with breath and pausing. So one of the things that can happen with up talk is we're nervous and we're speaking very quickly. And so what I want you to think about is, what do you want to say with purpose and how can you deliver it with purpose? So there's 3 kinds of inflection. There's up talk, so going up at the end of our sentence. There's neutral, staying neutral at the end of our sentence. And there's the downward inflection, which is very commanding, which is going down at the end of our sentence. Okay, so all 3 of those things signal something very, very different. What I want you to pay attention to is the tension in your vocal cords. So when we are tense, when we're nervous, we tend to take in a breath and talk at the top of our breath. It's really, really hard to sound confident when we're up here. So what I want you to do is when you say hello or your first few words, I want you to speak on the out breath.
Okay.
What most people do is they hold their breath before they get on a Zoom call or a phone call. So they go, hello, all the way up here.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Because you're like, hi.
Hi. Oh, so good to see you. So we did this experiment where we had people submit recordings of important phone calls, and we found the highest part of the entire call, up talk and vocal tone, was the first 10 seconds. Literally, people would go, hey, it's so good to see you. So how's it going?
That's 1,000% right.
So this is really easy to fix.
What do you do?
Instead of holding your breath, I want you to speak on the out breath. So let's do a little experiment. I want you to hear the highest end of your range. So the highest end of your range is when you speak at the top of your breath. So on the count of 3, I want us to say, and wherever you are, if you can do this in your car, tell your kids to do it with you. So I want you to take in a deep breath and say hello at the top of your breath. So it's going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3. Hello. So you want to try it with me, Mel?
Yeah, okay. I do.
1, 2, 3. Hello.
Hello. Hello. Yeah. Hi.
Okay.
It's very high.
That's the highest end of your breath. If you hear your range going up there, you are speaking too high. You hear yourself go there. What I want you to do is try to relax your vocal cords by speaking on the out breath. Hello. So this time, there you go. That was it. So you just heard the difference. So here's my difference. Ready? Hello. Hello. Those are both me, but they sound totally different. So this time what we're going to do is we're going to take a deep breath in on the count of 3. And I want you to say hello on the out breath. I want you to say it in a downward inflection. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Hello.
Mm, 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 mm.
Nice
That
deep
sounded
voice.
good.
Yes. Okay. So signaling competence. We now have a bunch of things that you can do, including, and probably one of the most important is learning how to take a breath and then talk on the
Yes.
out breath.
Can I add one more competence cue that I think is really
Please.
easy?
Yes.
Really easy. Okay, so hand gestures, there's 2 sides of hand gestures. One is visible, right? So we mentioned having a little, wave, hello, greeting at the top of a video call or in person. The next thing we look for in hand gestures is purpose. What highly competent people did, so we did a research study where we analyzed thousands of hours of TED Talks.
Okay.
I was curious, why do some TED Talks go viral and some don't? So in our lab, we analyzed thousands of hours counting cues, coding. We literally coded TED Talks and looked at the view count. We found that the most viral TED Talks use an average of 465 gestures in 18 minutes, whereas the least popular TED Talks use an average of 272 gestures, so almost half. What happens here is the best TED Talkers, they get on stage and they typically go, good morning. So they have a visible hand out of their pockets right in front. And then what they do, I'm going to demo this for you. And by the way, if you're just listening, I'm going to show some hand gestures along with my words. Mel, see if this looks familiar to you. This is every popular TED Talk. Today, I want to talk to you about a big idea. It's going to change your life in 3 different ways. That is cueing the brain to say, wow, this person knows their content so well, they can speak to me on 2 tracks. They can speak to me with their verbal, but they can also demo their concepts along with their words. So if I were to say, today I have a really big idea and hold up my hands like I'm holding a penny, you're like, Vanessa, it looks so small. Your brain is more likely to believe my gesture than my word.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So let me just say, if you want to watch this, go to youtube.com/Mel Robbins. This entire episode, the unabridged version, we put them up there. You can check it out. And it was very interesting because when you said big idea, what she did, everybody, is she held up her fingers, like making that gesture when, like, imagine if I were like, it's really puny.
Tiny.
And now I'm making that tiny little, like, my fingers are like a 1/4 inch apart. When she said it's a big idea and she showed me the hand signal for puny, Vanessa's dead right. My brain went right to the hand gesture and I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't match. Why the heck is she saying puny? Like, why is she not saying puny? Because clearly it's a puny idea if she's making it. That's really interesting.
So this is where I think inauthenticity comes from. So people who are inauthentic are saying one thing with their words, but their nonverbal, their vocal doesn't match. And our brain does not like this. Our brain is like, wait a minute, that was incongruent, right? Like that didn't work. So, and by the way, this is very hard to do. So everyone who's listening, I want to do a little experiment with you. What I want you to do in a second is I want you to say 5, but I want you to hold up the number 3. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
5.
5. Oh, that's weird.
Oh, horrible.
My brain literally went, that's the wrong hand gesture, Mel.
Your brain was like, stop. That is because our brains also like to be congruent. So our brains use our gestures as truth telling. And so what happens is there's this really interesting cycle of, if you want to be show up as competent, the other thing you can think about in the first 10 seconds and then throughout is, how can you demo a concept with your hands? Now, this is not interpretive dance. I don't want you to like, good morning, I'm so happy to be here. I love you.
You're hilarious.
Right? We don't have to do that. But there is a difference of, I'm so happy to be here. I want to talk about 2 different things in the meeting today. When someone holds up 2 and they say 2, not only does it make you look competent, they think, wow, it really is 2. You're also hooking the other person's brain to think, I better remember both. You become more memorable with more purposeful gestures. People believe your competence when your gestures and your words are congruent. A very easy one.
What are mistakes that, let's start with introverts. What are mistakes that introverts make when it comes to body language?
Okay, so one of the biggest mistakes that we have identified, there's a lot of them, is with our facial expressions. So I think with our facial expressions, we forget how rich our face is in demonstrating emotions or cueing emotions. So a big mistake that I see is people will fake smile. I love smiling, but there is nothing worse than fake smiling. I do not believe in toxic positivity. So people have been told, smile, smile more, which I think is like the worst advice, right? I'm like, smile purposefully, don't smile more. So a really simple mistake is someone will say, yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Incongruent, incongruent. So what will happen is an introvert really wants to show up as their best self. They come with the best intention, or someone will hop on a video call and they're trying to be positive. And so they'll have a lot of incongruent messages by trying to show warmth with a fake smile. The problem is Dr. Barbara Wild and her associates, they actually looked at fake smiling. And what they did is they showed people pictures of smiling people, fake smiling people, and neutral people. By the way, just the science of this, a fake smile or a real smile reaches all the way up into these upper cheek muscles. So if you were to smile all the way up into your upper cheek muscles, they activate your crow's feet, right? That's a real smile. Only 1 in 10 people can consciously activate those muscles. So they really do happen with authentic happiness.
Okay.
Fake smiles are only on the bottom half of the face. So if I was in a face mask, you could not see my fake smile.
Right, but you could see the smile lines in somebody's eyes.
If it's real.
So a real smile you actually make with your eyes.
Exactly.
Okay.
Upper cheek muscles / eyes. Exactly. So what happens is, what happened in this research experiment is she showed people pictures of real smiling people, and people caught the happiness. It actually affected their positive mood. They felt happier. When people saw the fake smiles, they caught nothing. In other words, cueing for real happiness actually makes you more contagious. Fake happiness makes you less memorable. Nothing happens. So the biggest mistake that will happen with introverts is they want to come across as warm, and their only tool in their toolkit is smiling. Problem is the good thing is there are many other warmth cues.
So what are the other warmth cues that you can use?
Okay. So if you're going to smile for real. And please go look at your LinkedIn profile picture. Please go look at your dating profile pictures. I either want you neutral, sexy, or smiling all the way. No fake smiles. Okay. So make sure that smile is all the way up into your eyes. Because if you have a fake smile in your LinkedIn profile picture, you are literally signaling fake happiness, inauthenticity. So if you don't want to actually smile, that is totally okay. That's not your only warmth cue. Here are your other warmth options. 1, a head nod. So a slow triple nod, 1, 2, 3, is an immediate warmth signal.
Wow. 1, 2, 3. Okay, right? We can do that, people. Yes.
Easy. So, and by the way, the funny thing about this, the research found, this just tickles me, that when someone does a slow triple nod, the other person speaks 67% longer.
Wow.
It's like a nonverbal ... You're literally saying to someone, tell me more. I want to listen. I want to hear you. So a slow triple nod. Oh,
I think they teach that to therapists, don't they?
Yes.
I think they teach the therapist triple nod technique.
Right. So a slow triple nod, very easy. You don't have to smile. It's a warmth cue. The other thing that we found, we did this in LinkedIn profile pictures. If you add a simple head tilt, you are seen as warmer. So if I tilt my head to the side, this is a universal response. If I want to hear something better, so if I say, Mel, do you hear that? We automatically tilt our head and expose our ear. That's a way that we want to hear better. And so when you are on a video call, on a date, in your LinkedIn profile picture, if you want to be seen as warm, you can tilt your head to the side as if to say, I am deeply listening. I am really trying to hear you. And it's much more natural than smiling maniacally.
This is fascinating.
Easy.
So we've got the triple nod, everybody. We've got smile with your eyes. We've got tilt your head slightly. What are other warm cues? Okay, so other warm cues, vocal. So let's talk about vocal. So those were 3 nonverbal cues. Vocal, remember, is the one that we often forget. You have a lot of power in your voice. So another warmth vocal cue is what I call vocalizations. Ooh, do we love a vocalization? So a vocalization is surround sound listening. It's showing that you're listening. So this is going to immediately make me sound warmer. Oh, I just did that. Ooh, I'm very warm.
Yes. So actually you have a very good balance, Mel, of warmth and competence. I was going to say you when you asked for an example, but I was like, that's way too brown nosy. So I didn't, but you have a very good warmth and competence because you will vocalize for me. So as a speaker, when you nod at me, I can see you nodding right now,
Oh,
right?
yeah. I'm just
When you,
doing it naturally.
yeah, and that encourages me as a speaker. I'm doing good. That makes my crunchiness smoother. So,
Oh, that's
right?
so awesome.
So your warmth cues are gifts to awkward people. When you show someone who's crunchy, awkward, afraid, I'm listening to you. That was interesting. Oh, aha. You are gifting them lubricant. You are saying, you got this, girl. Like, I'm listening. I am hearing you. This is super smooth, which then makes me more smooth. And so there's two sides of why I wrote this book. Yes, I want you to be more charismatic, but I also want you to be more inspiring. I want you to be contagious in a way that's gifting warmth and competence. And so adding vocalizations is a very easy way, especially for my introverts. Remember, my introverts, I want to teach you how to be heard without being loud. So nonverbal cues, vocalizations, that's a way for you to participate in conversation without saying a word. Right? So, oh,
That's fantastic.
easy.
All right, do that again. So what are the other ones other than
Ooh, ah, wow. What? Those are all warm vocalizations. In fact, doing them to right now should kind of give you the warm and fuzzies, like a little bit. Should be like, that feels so good. So whatever I say vocalizations are kind of like a warming blanket. It like makes the other person feel like, wow, I'm doing so good. So
You're
vocalizations are super
doing better
easy.
than good. You're doing fantastic, Vanessa. How
Thank
do you
you.
display competence? What are
Okay.
some cues for competence?
All right. So competence. Low tone, which we talked about already. So not using the accidental question inflection is really important. Explanatory gestures. So being purposeful with our gestures. Eye contact. Eye contact is a hard one because I know that eye contact can be different for different cultures. But what I want us to understand about eye contact is that eye contact produces a chemical. So when we mutually gaze, and they even found this happens through a screen. So if I make eye contact with the camera, we also produce this chemical oxytocin. Oxytocin is a very complicated chemical. It does a lot of things in our body, but for social purposes, oxytocin is the chemical of connection. When we are making eye contact, when we first meet someone or we hop on video, our bodies go, oh, we're both mutually gazing. We must be friend, not foe. Therefore, let me produce the chemical that allows me to trust. The more oxytocin that's in our bodies when we're communicating, the more open we are, the more we say yes, the more we feel like, I'm on the same page with this person. So eye contact is one of the fastest ways to get or gift oxytocin. Now, the amount of oxytocin is different. I do not believe, and I really want to repeat this, I do not believe in 100% eye contact.
Oh, thank God.
Oh,
Okay. Because
no.
for somebody I have ADHD, and I've noticed every time I read anything about body language, you're lying if you look away. And I'm like, I have a hard time holding eye contact for a long period of time. And I know it has to do with the ADHD.
That is correct. So let's talk about this. First of all, I want to talk about looking up to the left is lying, because that's a myth I want to bust. Second, the worst advice that bad body language books give is make more eye contact. No, eye contact is great and it can produce oxytocin, but actually we should not be making 100% eye contact or even 80 or 90% eye contact. That is a territorial gesture. Our bodies know that when we're trying to process something mentally, we look away. So for example, if I were to ask you to do some math with me, Mel, if I were to say, Mel, what's 10 times 10 plus 5 minus, wait, I'm not going to make you do it, but you immediately break eye contact.
105.
Okay.
I looked up to do the math.
Yeah, you looked up.
I never noticed that, but you're right. I looked up to go, like, I looked up at an imaginary chalkboard and imagined 10 times 10 plus 5, 105.
And this is a really important thing for humans to do. Why? If I ask you a complicated question, a technical question, even a memory-based question, oh, tell me about your last job, tell me about your last girlfriend, you need to look up to access the memory or to access the knowledge.
You do? So, like, is that like a neurological thing?
Yes, because think about this from a chemical perspective, when we are talking and we are bonding, I want to make eye contact. But if you ask me a hard question about my past or a math problem, I need to break the eye contact, stop producing the oxytocin so I can access that memory. So it's our brain's way of saying, don't give me too much input. I need to access this input and this information over here. So that's why it can be so confusing for people who are trying to make more eye contact. No,
Right.
I want you to make eye contact when you want to bond with someone. Absolutely. Especially in the first few seconds. But when you're processing or accessing information, I actually want you to look away because you're going to give a better answer. And humans understand this, right? So if you were to ask me a very hard question that I didn't know the answer to, and I went, that's a great question, you are more likely to believe my answer because I looked away to process it.
That's fascinating.
So that's the first thing I want to bust about eye contact is do not feel pressure to make more eye contact. Competent people make purposeful eye contact. Competent people, they know that when they're trying to bond and connect, they're right at you. But when they're trying to access a competent answer, they're accessing it over here or over here or over here. So that's actually a mark of competence. It's also a way to pause, to introduce, I am deeply thinking about what you just said, so I can give you a really good answer. Second thing is we have done a ton of lie detection research in our lab. In fact, I almost, we have one chapter on lie detection in the book. I almost put it into its own book because it's so much research. I want to bust a myth. Looking up to the left or looking up to the right does not mean someone is lying. That means someone is accessing different information. What I do think that people should do is know their lying tells. I think a fundamental piece of information every single person should know about themselves is what they do when they lie. So here's what I want you to
hold on. Let me just make sure I'm. So you're not saying here's a tell when someone else is lying. You're saying what is the tell when you're lying?
That's it.
Oh, why do I need to know that?
You need to know that because you need to know when you are accidentally signaling inauthenticity. Because what can often happen is you should know your own lying tell because hopefully you're not lying a lot. But oftentimes people will do their lying tell when they're not even lying, when they're nervous or afraid. And it's signaling to the world, I'm nervous and afraid.
What's your lying tell?
So my lying tell is I hide my hands. So my hands get really cold and I usually hide them or I clench them. So if you see me ever have like a clenched fist, I'm like, keep it together, keep it together, keep it together, keep it together. So a clenched fist or white knuckling it, or I hide my hands. I also use a little bit of a disgust microexpression. So we talked about fear as a microexpression. Disgust is when we crinkle our nose up and we flash the whites of our teeth. This is like if I were to say, oh, I smell something bad. Disgust is a really common lying red flag because liars, including myself, we hate lying. It makes us feel dirty. Literally, lying makes us feel dirty. Liars will often use more Purell afterwards because it makes them feel physically dirty. So you'll see people, if you ask someone, so what do you think of the new girl? Oh yeah, she's nice. Yeah.
You've got a disgust face as you say that.
Yeah.
And now as I'm watching you, I'm like, you're lying because you're saying she's nice, but your face says disgust.
Yeah.
So how do you though know your own tell? Because I'm sitting here trying to think.
No, well, I'm gonna give you the
I know
most
what it
fun.
is.
This is a fun Friday night. If you're willing to kind of do this with a couple of friends, it's really fun to do this. I highly recommend doing this with your partner. My partner and I know our each other's tells, which has made our marriage super honest, which I love, like radical honesty. I'm all about it. So here's what I want you to do. Okay.
Get ready, Chris.
Okay.
Date night.
Get ready. One, if you can film this also, it's helpful to rewatch it together. First, I want you to open up your camera or your phone. One, I want you to tell me what you had for breakfast yesterday. Okay. The reason for this is a recall test. You need to know what you look like when you're recalling truth. You will notice you'll probably look up to the left or look up to the right.
Yeah, I look to the left.
Or touch your face.
I looked to the left and then I looped my head around.
Okay. So and you also were tapping your foot. You're shaking.
Was I? Oh, I was? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So that's your recall test. That's what you look like when you are accessing truthful information.
You're right. You know why I click my foot? It's like I'm cranking the brain back up.
Come on.
I still can't remember what the hell I had for breakfast yesterday, even though I'm cranking the foot and I'm looking to the left, but okay.
You're like, what was it? What was it? What was it?
What is today? Yesterday was Sunday. I can't remember what I had for breakfast.
If I made you sit and think about it, by the way, it's okay if it takes you a couple of seconds to think about it. We'll see exactly what you look like or what Mel looks like when she's recalling truth.
Oh, I'm like scrunching my face up right now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I had breakfast yesterday.
And that could be the answer.
Yeah, I don't think I ate breakfast yesterday.
So we just
Okay.
saw what Mel looks like when she is recalling truth.
Okay.
Right? Okay. That's very important to know about someone, because if you ask your teenage daughter, did you hear about the drug incident at school? And they use truthful recall cues, you're good. Right?
Okay, cool. I like
Truthful
this game.
recall. Yeah,
So how do I know when I'm lying?
it's coming. Okay.
Okay, good.
So the second question I want you to answer to camera, and by the way, what was it?
What did I have for breakfast? I don't think I ate anything.
Okay, good. Okay, got it. So you can do this all in one take. It's even better. Like, I like the pausing. We want to see what you do in those moments of like, what was it? What was it? Okay. Second question. I want you to tell me your most embarrassing story. The more embarrassing, the better. I want you to deliver it right to camera. This is how you look when you're recalling something that makes you nervous. The
Oh,
biggest mistake that we make in lie detection is we confuse nervousness for guilt.
got it.
They are different. So when you recall your most embarrassing story, and I want you to like feel it, like really feel it. I want you to see what you do when you're nervous. That's your nervous tell. And those are also things you don't want to show when you're trying to come across as confident, because they're your nervous leaks. So common nervous tells are mashing the lips.
Oh, I think I just did that.
Yeah. We like try to hold it in.
Yeah.
Common nervous tells are touching the stomach, the face. That's often we'll like, oh, nervous.
Do people do this on Zoom calls too? You see them doing this?
All the time, all the time, all the time. It's a great way to, I mean, I don't want you to like do this to your colleagues without them knowing it. It's always good to do it honestly, but it's very helpful to know, like on my team, we do team calls every week. It's
Oh my
helpful
God,
for
I
me
would
to
hate to
know
be on a
when I'm
team
making
call with
someone
you.
nervous.
What'd you say?
It's helpful to know when I'm making a teammate nervous, right? Like I have a wonderful big team. And if I share, oh, we're having a big New Year's launch and how does everyone feel? And I know my team member's nervous tell, and I see it on a Zoom call, I can say, hey, Rob, are we good on that? Like any hesitations, any hangups? That then gives him permission to say, I don't know if the graphics are going to be ready in time. So a deeper way to interact, I believe, is radical honesty, where on my team, we know each other's nervous tells, so I can address them, right?
Can you give us the top 5 signs that somebody is nervous based on their body language?
Yes. So touching the hands, touching the face, touching the stomach. That actually comes out of Cornell University. They actually found that when we're nervous, we touch our stomach, or we clench our stomach, or we touch our face. Third is purposeless gestures. So wringing the hands, cracking the knuckles, touching the back of the neck, gestures that have no purpose.
Mm-hmm.
What's another one? I'm trying to check the research.
Playing with a necklace?
Playing with your necklace, fidgeting. Those are also purposeless gestures. Adding unnecessary pauses or awkward pauses. So someone's in the middle of a talk and they're really trying to explain it, but they're pausing as mid word or mid sentence, like that.
If you call out somebody on a Zoom meeting for their nervous tell, do they get more nervous?
It depends on how you do it, right? Intention is everything here. So I don't like being like that. Gotcha. Yeah, that's not a good way to interact with cues. However, if I notice, like I'm on a team call and I say, hey, everyone, we're having a big New Year's launch. And I notice one of my team members shows a cluster of 3 nervous tells. One cue by itself does not usually mean anything, right? Like, for example, we're going to talk about lying in the last question. One of the top lying red flags is touching the nose. So liars have, we have a very specific kind of tissue in our nose. And research has found that when we lie and we're in guilt, it swells and it causes our nose to itch. So Bill Clinton, during his Monica Lewinsky testimony, when he lied, he touched his nose 26 times. In his truthful testimony, he touched his nose twice. So this is a response that we have. So
are you lying right now? Because you just touched your nose.
No, I'm showing you.
Oh,
because
sorry.
but also, what if you have allergies? What if you have a cold? So one cue by itself is never good. 3 cues. So if I see someone nose touch, and let's another like interesting lying tell is a shame touch. So when we touch the side of our forehead, we often do this when we're very embarrassed. It's an eye blocking behavior. And I see a lip purse. So we press our lips into a hard line. That's 3 very, very big red flags in a row. That's when I either will pause the Zoom call and I'll be like, hey, everyone, I just want to check in. Rob, does this sound doable to you? This launch timeline? Are we good on this? Anything that I should know or that we're not thinking about? That's me, not me saying, Rob, I saw you touch your nose, which is like terrible, but it's me checking in with him. Or I might afterwards hang up the Zoom call, text him or call him or email and say, hey, are you good with the launch? I just want to make sure. So I believe in that.
Got it. Okay. That's super cool. So how do I tell what my lying tell is?
Okay. So the last question. So we did what you had for breakfast, your most embarrassing story. The last one is the most important. I want you to make up an embarrassing story that did not happen to you and tell it to the camera and try to convince me it happened to you. This is an example of what you do when you're trying to make up a completely false story, and you will see exactly what you do when you lie.
Wow. Can you teach us how to walk into a room and see somebody who's highly influential? Like just distinguish?
Yes. So the very first thing, and I've noticed this in a lot of rooms, from both professional rooms to social rooms to even speed dating, is typically when a person is cued or tuned into someone or aware of someone, we angle our body towards them. Now, as adults, we get pretty good at hiding this, but our toes often give us away. So typically when I walk into a room, I like to play a little game with myself. This is how I amuse myself. I try to guess who the boss is in the room based on where people's toes are pointing. Typically, we point our toes towards the most important person in the room. That is because subconsciously our body is attuned to them, wanting to either talk to them, go towards them, or wants to read them. So whenever I'm in a room with like an influencer or a celebrity, even if it's just a mingling, I can almost always tell that everyone is like, their eye is on that influencer, that celebrity, or the boss, because their toes are pointed towards them. The only exception to this is when people have to go, you will notice their toes will shift towards the exit. It's if their brain are going, what's my escape? When can I get out of here? So one is always look at toe direction.
Okay.
It can also show you hidden crushes. Not always, but sometimes. Usually I can tell when someone has a little crushy crush on someone else based on where their toes, and that person will move, and the person's toes who has a crush on them will usually follow them, which is kind of a funny thing. So always pay attention to toes. That's the first way that we do it. The second thing is, typically, not always, highly influential people claim their space. So all of this ties together. When you are assertive verbally, you are assertive emotionally, you're also assertive physically. And this has been proven. So researchers from the University of British Columbia studied athletes. And they studied athletes across genders and races. And they found that winning athletes who win a race, they take up a pride pose. This was popularized by Amy Cuddy's TED Talk, which had its own set of history, but they've actually proven that just the body language itself is repeatable. So winning athletes, they take up space, they lower their shoulders, they usually tilt their head towards the sky. And then there's two measurements that I think no one talks about that I want to talk about, that everyone misses. Yes, we get it. If someone walks in a room like Rocky, with their hands above their head, we get it, they feel good. But that's very socially aggressive. Like, I'm not going to advise people to walk into a room, I'm here, right? It's too much. What the two measurements that actually matter the most for being impactful or spotting an impactful person are the distance between our earlobes and our shoulder.
Wait, what?
I know.
The distance between
our earlobe and our shoulder.
So right now, I think I probably have I got 8 inches, 6 inches, something like that.
And so for you, that's maxed. Try to put your shoulders down as much as possible.
Like down? Okay.
Yeah, that's the most, right?
I just want to explain because you can see this on YouTube, but basically just imagine as you're listening that we are taking our ears, try to touch your ears with your shoulders and shrink down into your body. And that's what Vanessa's doing.
Yeah, turtle your head, put your shoulders up, try to touch your ears to your shoulders.
Yeah, look like pretend you're a teenager who's staring at your phone.
This is what happens. So as we do this, a couple things happen. One is we feel terrible. Do you feel terrible? Yes, it feels terrible. So it feels terrible. Also, our vocal power drops. So it's very, very hard to actually give a lot of vocal power. I go into vocal fry when I do this because it's very hard. So it affects your vocal power. It affects your perceived confidence, like how you feel. And also affects how you look, right? You look less confident. If I were to give the entire interview like this,
and you can't see her right now, and she literally
I just hunched my shoulders.
Hi, and she squeezed her shoulders up. You literally all of a sudden went from Vanessa, renowned researcher, to it's Vanessa in middle school.
Yes. This is the only difference. This one little cue completely changes your perception of me.
So for somebody who is introverted,
yes,
you are like the idea of the spotlight being on you is your worst nightmare, but you do want to become more assertive, or you at least want people to look at you and go, she's confident, he's confident, they're an influential person.
Yes.
What's the body language that you can start to practice?
Okay, well, first of all, I write books for you because I believe your cues can speak for you.
Okay.
Introverts, your cues are even more important because you can use small micro cues non-verbally to speak for you, right? Okay, so for an introvert or anyone listening, you want to maximize the distance between your ear and your shoulder pretty much at all time, especially on video. Here is a classic mistake that I see all the time. Hey, everyone. Hi.
You're on Zoom and your shoulders,
are up your ears. Or you're waving hello with your shoulders up your ears. Or they walk into a date or they walk into a meeting. Morning. Your first impression is now little, small, defeated.
Here's the cue I want to give you as you're listening. If you are like, but I'm shy, but I am introverted, but I do feel awkward in those situations. I want you to think about middle school you being terrified of seeing a group of cool kids.
Yeah.
And the badass powerhouse that we know that you are inside. And I want you to imagine that your friend Mel Robbins is on one side of you and your friend Vanessa Van Edwards is on the other side of you. And I want you to pull that body language together. That's what we're talking about, because everybody can pull their shoulders back and drop them down and stand up taller or sit up taller.
That's it.
Okay.
And that one cue creates a loop. And here's what I want you to think about. If that's you thinking, oh my gosh, I'm scared, I am awkward, you can change the loop of your awkwardness with this one cue. Why? Is if you have your shoulders down and back, it signals to your brain, I'm taking up space, I'm claiming my space, which then tells your brain, okay, we're safe, we're okay. The reason why we hunch our shoulders is to protect our neck. That is why we're doing it.
That's why we do that?
Yes, it's an evolutionary cue. So if I turtle my neck down and I tilt my chin down and I hunch my shoulders up, my throat is more protected. That is a more protected gesture. So there's an evolutionary reason why we do it. So if your shoulders are down and back, your head is held high, my jugular is showing, my brain says, we're safe. If you do the opposite, you're telling your brain, we are not safe, which then makes you have more cortisol, which shuts down your thinking, which makes you have dry mouth, which makes you blush, which makes you run out of oxygen, right? It creates all those awkwardness cues. So we can stop our awkward loops by simply changing our cues. So this is the first distance, is ear to shoulder.
I want to make sure you got that. So if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to follow along. As you're listening to us, as long as you're not driving a car, I want you to actually experience what Vanessa's talking about. So I want you to will you walk us through, like you take your chin and you point it down and you put your shoulders up.
Point your chin down as if you're checking your phone.
Yep.
Now hunch your shoulders up and then turtle your ears down. So you're as small as possible. So your jugular, your neck is protected. If you sit like this, you are going to begin to feel more awkward and uncomfortable. You're going to lose
hard
oxygen.
To breathe almost.
Yes. You're going to lose oxygen. You're going to have vocal fry. And here is the biggest aha of all. That is what everyone does when they check their phone. So accidentally, multiple times a day, you are putting yourself into defeat and shame body language. Accidentally. What are you doing before a date? Probably checking your phone. What are you doing before a presentation? Probably reviewing your phone. What are you doing before? So what I want you to do is check your phone differently.
How?
Okay, so when you're holding your phone, what I want you to do is up and out.
Up and out.
Up and out.
Up and out.
Right. So when I check my phone, especially before something important, I am not hunched over with my chin tucked in and my arms tucked tightly to my chest, which we're going to talk about in a second. I am up and out. So I'm claiming my space. My phone is up so that my chin is up. My jugular is still showing. If you check your phone like this, you feel so much more confident.
It's true. I don't have my phone with me, but if like
you can look at my babies. I think there's a good picture of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I've got it up like this,
and you can even put your elbow down on the table. That's okay.
True. And now I'm like bicep flex.
You're like, wow, look how powerful. You look so powerful.
Like,
Mel looks so
I'm like, I gotta pull my phone out here and check it.
That's it.
Wow. And also, like, you can still like text while you're doing that.
Or you can rest your arms on the table. That's okay too. Like you're still looking out, right?
Up and out.
Up and out.
I love that.
Especially
okay, you said something about our arms.
Okay, that's
what
the
else
next
are we
cue.
doing with our arms?
Okay, so first cue, ears to shoulders. Second cue, distance between your torso and your arms. Watch this. So if you're listening, I want you to pin your arms tightly to your side, and I want you to try to roll your chest in, and then I want you to cross your arms over your chest.
Like you're giving yourself like a little hug in front.
You will begin to feel like, I'm a little nervous, I'm a little anxious, I'm a little uncomfortable. You will actually speak in shorter sentences when you sit like this. You're more likely to say no. In research, they find that when you're in closed body languages, you are more likely to say no. based on
This
this body language.
pose, if you're not watching on YouTube, is the kind of pose you would imagine somebody sitting in a gymnasium at a dance where they haven't been asked
Yes.
to dance.
Yes. Yes.
And so as you cross your arms in front of your body and you kind of roll your shoulders forward, you do feel kind of like you're a loser.
yes. And it
Like I'm literally like, wow, I could get attacked at any
That's
time
it.
right now.
That's it, because it's a protective gesture. These all come from for a reason, right? These body language cues are not made up. The reason why they're universal, not all body language is universal, but the cues we're going to talk about today are universal. It's because there's a reason from an evolutionary perspective why this happens. So if I'm worried about someone attacking me, I want to protect my vital organs. I want to not have my flanks exposed, and I want to take up as little space as possible so no one notices me. So we forget that when we're sitting in a meeting or we're going on a date or we're trying to psych ourselves out, and we're sitting in the car and we're like, oh, I'm so nervous. We're actually creating a negative feedback loop for ourselves.
So what do we do with our arms?
Okay, so always, please make sure you are using a desk chair with armrests.
Okay.
So this chair is actually a little hard, right?
'Cause,
So
yeah, we're getting new
I can do
chairs.
it.
They're
I can get
higher
new
arms,
chairs.
too.
These are okay. We have small armrests.
Well, you and I are both very tall.
We're
so
very
this
tall.
might
I
work.
know. So this is okay if you're a little bit shorter. It's okay. We have some. First of all, armrests immediately bring space. Now look at the difference between this
That's true.
and this.
And for you listening, all we're doing is moving our elbows out to the side. That's it.
So I'm actually okay. I know my mom would not be happy with me. I'm actually okay with elbows on the table if they're nice and broad. You can see space. I'm not trying to be protective. It actually broadens my chest, which gives me more oxygen, which allows me to have more vocal power. So I want you to always choose the chair with the armrest. Like when I go into pitches or I'm talking to a client, I always pick the chair with the armrest. I never pick the low slouchy couch. The low
I don't
slouchy
either.
Never.
You know why else I pick a chair with an armrest? Because I like to swivel
Oh, the swivel
and
is
rock,
so good.
and I like to cock an elbow on the back of
That's
the chair.
so good.
Like
this is so good. So
Yeah,
confident.
I'm like super relaxed.
You're a cowgirl. That's basically what that is, right? Like, yes. And so that is a confident gesture. You're claiming space.
Yep.
You have freedom of movement. The other reason why I love a swivel is because we should be fronting with whoever we're talking to.
Oh,
Right.
so you by that, if you're listening again, you're seeing all this on the YouTube version of this episode, but if you are in a meeting and you're in a swivel chair, we want you to turn your chair and face the person who's actually talking.
Exactly. It is a nonverbal sign of respect when you swivel your chair towards them. You're literally saying, I'm going to angle my entire body to get on the same page as you. Tell me more. I'm aligned with you. And physically, from a research perspective, when we are aligned on the same parallel lines as someone else, we can see each other's body language better. We literally feel like we're on the same page. And so the swivel chair adds to that. And then if you can add armrests, that immediately broadens us and immediately gives us more perceived and felt confidence.
You know what's super great also for someone, especially if you're listening and you're shy, you're introverted, you don't like the attention on you. These are nonverbal things you can do that, based on the research,
Yes.
demonstrate that you're confident, that you're influential, that you are respectful,
Yes.
that you are powerful despite the fact that you're not saying anything.
That's it.
What am I doing with my hands?
Okay, so they actually studied this. They took videotapes of leaders speaking, and they had participants rate the leaders on their charisma, specifically their gestures. And they had all kinds of gestures in these videos. They found there was one single gesture that people rated as the most charismatic, and it is, I call it the power pose for the hands. It is a steeple.
Okay.
So a steeple is when you touch the tops of your fingertips slightly together and you keep space between your palms. It is the most calm, broad gesture for your hand. You can do it with an armrest. You can do it on the table. Right now, just be careful. Don't drum. That's evil drumming. That's
Oh.
very Mr. Burns.
Okay,
a
so
Simpsons
you're not
reference.
tapping your
We're
fingers.
not drumming. We're not drumming our fingers.
And
That's
if
very
you're
evil.
listening, everybody, and I want you to touch your pinky to your pinky, like literally make a triangle with your hands.
Just try this with me for a second.
Yeah.
It will actually make you feel more grounded when you do it.
It's almost like you got like superpower running from one hand to the other hand. You're like, zzz, you know, just as you
And the
put it there.
powers unite.
Correct.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So it's a very relaxed gesture. Now, whenever I teach a cue, there are 97 cues, right? Not every cue is going to work for you. That's okay. I recommend, please try it 3 times in 3 different situations. Try it in a meeting, try it on a Zoom call, try it on a date, try it with a friend. If you've tried it 3 different times with 3 different people and you still feel ridiculous, you might not want to use it, right? I don't want you to feel silly.
What's the second recommendation for your hands?
Second recommendation? So, okay, I love a steeple. The other one is a very small, little subtle gesture, but it's a cue of excitement. So leaders, highly effective people, are cueing people around them to know how to feel. Cues tell others how they should treat us. So this one's my really good one. This one's my favorite.
What is it?
It's this.
Oh, you're rubbing your hands together.
Yes.
So literally just rubbing your hands together as you're talking.
So like when I'm about to say something, oh, this is really good. This is really exciting. Even that small little gesture should be like, ooh, this is going to be good. I don't know why. I think it's because we warm our hands this way. But a very subtle one is if you're about to share something good or tell someone, like, oh, this is such a good little story. That one little cue, it shows excitement. It triggers excitement. So you can often go from the this to the this.
You know what I just got as you were doing that?
What?
It's almost like, that's the motion you make when you're swiveling a stick to do a fire.
Make a fire. Oh, yes. So it's
So
like
it's
literally generating heat.
Yes.
We're
That's
literally-
so cool is what you're signaling.
We're generating conversational heat if you're going to go with the metaphor.
Wow.
Now, the common line really, the bigger takeaway here is visible hands.
Okay.
So every gesture I could teach you is visible hands. It's a palm flash, it's a steeple, it's a gesture towards you. Visible is bare minimum. So highly effective people, they claim space with their shoulders and their arms. They have their hands visible because they want to show intention. Some gestures communicate 400% more information. Like if I were to say 3, you're more likely to believe my 3 than if I were to say 3 and hold up 5. So we just believe hands more often. So if I were to say, I have 3 really important things to tell you.
I'm looking at her
You're
hands.
gonna be like, it's
So
5,
and she's
Vanessa.
holding up as you're listening
5.
at all 5. Well, is your thumb a finger? Like, I don't even know. It's like you're like all 5
Yes.
fingers.
Yes, a thumb is a finger.
Okay.
Yes. By the way, hold up 5, but say 3.
3.
Horrible.
You just
Can't do it.
It doesn't. I'm trying to do it as you're listening. Why
Try
don't
it,
you try to do it
So
while you're
everyone
listening?
Say, I have 3 ideas, but hold up 5.
I have
3
3
ideas. Horrible.
Horrible.
Why? It
I
is
don't know.
I know. I'm going to tell you. That was a rhetorical question. I'm going to tell you. I was asking why to myself. So here's why. Is because it is very hard to lie with gesture. We are very used to lying with our words. And so it's very easy to say 3, 5, easy. It is very hard to lie with gesture. So if I were to say I have a really big idea and I were to hold up my hands like this and a very small, like I'm holding a little dime or a penny, you would say, Vanessa, it's small. So our brain subconsciously knows this. We are more likely to believe a gesture over a word.
Interesting.
That is why highly competent people are so good with their gestures, is they're basically signaling to you, I believe in my content so much. I know my stuff so well that I can speak to you on 2 tracks.
Mouth and hands.
Yes. And so another kind of expert levels bottom is keep them visible. Keep your hands visible, out of pockets above the desk, right? I like to greet hands first. Second is, can you be explanatory? Can you add a punctuation or an underline or a highlight? If you're going to say that you have a big idea, show me how big it is. Is it beach ball big?
So for you listening, I really want you to get this. You might want to check out the YouTube version so that you can watch this. But as she was saying big idea, she literally held her hands out to be demonstrative with her hands. And it does communicate
Underlines.
belief. And it's like you're right. It's like taking a highlighter with your meat mitts.
That's it.
And just being like, here we go.
Yes.
I believe in this.
And it's purposeful, right? So it's not just gestures for the sake of gestures where I'm just jazz handsing it.
Yeah.
It's like underlining purposefully. It's like giving someone an outline.
That's so cool. So how do highly influential people communicate?
Okay, so highly influential people, they communicate with their nonverbal, their vocal, and their verbal. We talked a little bit about body language. Last time we talked a lot about vocal, but we want to keep our voice nice and low. We also want to make sure we're not using vocal fry. So vocal fry is when we're like this. If you hear yourself using vocal fry, just speak louder.
Okay.
Volume immediately gets rid of vocal fry. So if you hear yourself going into that pattern where it's like a sizzling pan, just speak a little bit louder. Same thing if you hear someone using vocal fry, you can ask them to speak up.
Got it.
So nonverbal, we talked about. Vocal, we just talked about. We also talked about a lot in the last episode. Definitely go listen to that one. That was a fun one. Verbal. Verbal is the last big section. So we talked about labels. One thing I didn't talk about is how highly influential people use verbal patterns that change people's behavior. Here's one of my favorite studies. I think about this study all the time. What they did is they brought participants into their lab and they split them up.
Into their lap?
Lab.
Oh, I thought you were like, wow.
It's not that kind
Yeah,
of
this
study,
is
Mel.
a study.
I don't know what they'd be able to do in their labs, but we were talking about body language. So into their lab. And I should be careful with that word. Now that you're doing it, it reminded me of that. Okay.
I think we were talking about body language, so I'm thinking about
You're
bodies.
like, people were sitting in their laps? That's so interesting. We should do all of your interviews like that. Okay. They brought people into their lab and they split them up into 2 different groups. The first group came into the lab, they were greeted by the researcher, and they were told, today you are playing the community game. And they went to explain the rules of the game and they played the game. The second group came into the same lab, the same researcher, and they were told, today you are playing the Wall Street game. But the trick was the games were exactly the same. Everything was the same except for that single word cue. So being told you were playing the community game versus being told you were playing the Wall Street game.
So Wall Street versus community.
That's it. Everything else was exactly the same.
Okay.
Can you guess what happened?
People that were in the Wall Street game immediately like turned it on like, I'm going to win. And people who were told we're going to play the community game, they turned it on to be connected.
Okay. So
am I right?
You're exactly right, but the outcome is a little bit sadder than that.
Okay.
But the outcome is sad. You're right. The Wall Street people wanted to win, which means they shared an average of 1/3 of their profits. In the community game, people shared an average of 2/3 of their profits.
Wow.
In other words, people who were primed, where they heard the word Wall Street, thought about sharing or being less communal. So they didn't want to share as much. They were primed by the idea of Wall Street.
Wow.
Whereas people who were told they were playing the community game actually acted more collaboratively. This is an incredible study because it shows that we can change someone's behavior with one single word. So when you think about your calendar invites, what kind of calendar invites are you sending? I don't know about you, but I usually get call, meeting, one-on-one, conference, video call, Zoom. Those are sterile. They're not priming anyone for anything. You are actually telling someone, keep your brain on autopilot. This meeting will be exactly the same as all the others. What I want you to do is think about how can you play the community game? What do you want someone to feel, think, and behave like when they see that invite pop up in their inbox?
What do you recommend?
Okay, collaborative session, 2024 wins, goal meeting, mastery meeting, team session, team collaboration, creative hour, right? Like they're not long, but we're using words that are actually setting people up to feel and behave in those ways. I don't know about you, I open my calendar multiple times a day. So if you send a calendar invite that is purposeful, that is actually setting them up for success, you are priming them to feel and act that way every single time they open their calendar. That breaks autopilot.
I love that. We are implementing that.
Yes.
I'm yelling at everybody now. We're implementing that.
Yes, and no more emails that say subject follow-up. Follow-up is the worst subject line in history. Worst one in history. Yes.
You've spent decades studying murderers, liars, world leaders, becoming an expert at decoding this hidden language. What do we need to know, like in our everyday lives? What are the basics that you want everybody to be equipped with so that we can spot when people are lying, so that we can spot these signals that somebody is giving to us and be more empowered in life? Where do we even begin, Janine?
It's a great question, Mel. First, I would start with us before decoding others, right?
Okay.
So emotional intelligence is self-awareness, social awareness, self-adaptation, motivating others to be the best version of themselves. So let's start with self-awareness. Okay. When it comes to ourselves, a lot's happening. I call it a behavioral fingerprint. What's your behavioral fingerprint? What's your movement DNA look like?
I have no idea.
Well, you're so dynamite. Are you kidding? You listen. You're like making a bagel in your kitchen or whatever, and then you say some soundbite and it goes. Millions of people are watching it and lives are being changed because of it. Your body language is great. You're very authentic, and here's why. If we can, I love trees, and if you at home can imagine a tree, there's the 4 stages of how we communicate. And if you think of a tree, Mel, and you at home, we're going to start with the roots of the tree. The roots of the tree is what we believe. I spoke at Georgetown University, and someone said, a woman, at the end of my presentation, excuse me, I have a group interview tomorrow. 5 people are interviewing me. Janine, is there a question you would ask at the end of the interview? And I said, yes, I would ask to each of them, what do you consider the ideal candidate to look like? And how do I measure up to your expectation of the ideal candidate? And the woman, had you all been there, you would have seen her and heard her say, I could never ask that. I would look desperate. And you would have heard me respond, you're right. You would look desperate. I would look confident.
Is that because of the roots?
It's because of the roots of the tree. It's what I believe, because I really want to know that question. A lot of us, for the women who are listening, a lot of us women, we really do ourselves a huge disservice. The men go in and men say, excuse me, Mel, I just found out my mother's coming to town 4th of July. I'm taking 4 days off. Confident, solid body language. Women, we ask the same question that same day. We will often, many of us, come in shoulder shrugging. And we put our shoulders up to our ears. Hey, boss, I just found out, shoulder shrug, that my mother's coming to town, shoulder shrug. I didn't know she was coming. Could I take the 4th of July off? And your boss says yes to Bob and no to Jane. Jane, ask me again in June. And we walk away and say, this is what happens. See, it's a double standard. Now, I'm not saying there's not a double standard with men and women, because there is. But there are some areas where we have to take responsibility for the results we're getting. And here's the reason. When we shoulder shrug, we're going to talk about this hopefully in a bit, but a shoulder shrug means uncertainty, and it's also connected to deception, which we'll talk about hopefully in a minute. But a shoulder shrug means uncertainty, and we have mirror neurons. You yawn, Mel, or Donna, or Jesse, or Amy, or Andrea, whoever's listening. You yawn, I yawn. Science. Mel, I know you love science. I know you love what's happening in the brain and how the brain and the body are talking to one another, because they are. So when I come in uncertain, how am I making my boss feel, Mel?
Uncertain. And they probably don't even realize it. Like you, I've been watching a bunch of your TED Talks, and you did this exercise with the audience, and we can do it with everybody listening, where simply take a second and say the words, "Can I have the 4th of July off?" while your shoulders are hiked up towards your ears. And you'll realize your entire body and energy is questioning the words that are coming out of your mouth. It's impossible, Janine. You're absolutely right. I've never even thought about it. Impossible to even feel confident if you're talking with your shoulders up at your ears. You're shrugging them up.
Well, you're planting pumpkin seeds and expecting tomatoes to grow.
It's true.
I mean,
it begins with the roots,
and
though.
it's not our fault. It's not your fault, because no one is teaching us this, okay? We just want to be liked. We don't want to be inconveniencing people. We don't know if we're bothering. But if you look at the many of the men are confident alpha women. They just come in unapologetically. That's the roots of the tree. What is it that you're planting? Because what you're planting is going to grow whatever the seed is connected to. So get to those roots of the tree. It's what do you believe?
What's the second part? The trunk. Okay, what's the second part?
The trunk of the tree is body language. And now this is interesting, because after body language comes the branches. The branches, Mel, and you at home, the branches are thought. So this means body language comes before thought. And here's the deal. It comes up to 5 seconds before thought. Mel, do you think 5 seconds is a good advantage for the military? Would 5 seconds matter?
It's life or death, I would think.
Do you think 5 seconds matter with an athlete?
It's winning or losing.
Can 5 seconds with you, with your 10-second rule, can 5 seconds make a difference?
Of course.
Can I jump out of bed?
Yes.
At 5 seconds?
Yes.
With understanding what I'm talking about now, first is the intention, the roots of the tree, then body language, and then thought. This means you get a 5-second advantage to know how someone else feels before their brain knows how they feel. This is why when I say, hey, Mel, I can't come and join you for Thanksgiving this year. And you go, not a problem, Janine, and your lips disappear. Everyone pull your lips in and just say, not a problem, I don't mind. Problem. And pull your lips in, okay?
Make them disappear.
Make them disappear. And so Mel goes, not a problem, Janine. I say when we don't like what we see or hear, our lips disappear. Or a lip roll is emotional control.
What's a lip roll look like?
That's this.
Oh,
lips
so
disappearing, rolling those lips in.
Okay.
So Mel says, not a problem. I now have a 5-second advantage. I know there is a problem because Mel's lips disappeared. And when we don't like what we see or hear, our lips disappear. So I know there is a problem. I know my dad's a hothead. When I see my dad's lips disappear, I've got 5 seconds to get my kids in the truck and get the heck out of Maine and my dad's cottage before my kids see the angry dad that I grew up with because they don't believe he exists, right? So I have a 5-second advantage. Let's go, we gotta go, you know, move on out. You know, it's like the Indy 500 fixing the tires really quick. So I might stick around and say, Mel, you know, maybe I'm wrong here. It seems that you're disappointed or there's something you're not saying. 5 seconds later, I'm going to tell you what that person's going to say. Yeah, I am mad because last year you were supposed to come and you backed out 3 days before then. You have a 5-second head start if you can decode body language, because the body language people are showing you, their brain doesn't realize how they feel just yet. Body language shows up before the branches, before that thought. And the last one are the leaves. The leaves of the tree, Mel, are the words. And words matter because words plant the next seed. The words matter. What falls off the tree is planting that next seed. I recently heard on TikTok, and by the way, my friend said, you don't say you saw it on TikTok, you say you read it in the New York Times recently. So I told my sons, my 3 sons, I go, I recently read in the New York Times, and Jackie, he's my wise guy, the little one, he goes, yeah, I heard Terry Moore tell you when you see something on TikTok to say you read it in the New York Times. So what you're about to tell us, did you really see it on TikTok, Mom? I'm like, damn you, Jackie, and your wiseness, you know? So here's what I heard on TikTok, and maybe your listeners have heard it, and maybe you've said it too. Have you talked about the bees and the flies?
No.
So the bees are not flying around trying to convince the flies that honey tastes better than shit. So I'm going to repeat that. The bees are not wasting time convincing flies that honey tastes better than shit. I want a tribe of bees. I still want to inspire and influence the world, but only for the flies who are interested in tasting the honey. I recently broke up with a guy that I was dating named Jimmy. He's amazing. I'm 5'9", I'm thick. He's 6'6". He's an animal, right? He's like this giant. It's the first time I ever felt small. I finally started eating carbs again, dating Jimmy. I'm like, I can date carbs. I'm dating this giant. And I had to break up with him because of what my mother would call his stinking thinking. He is planting these seeds of negativity. He's like, people are going to take advantage of they're going to mistake your kindness for weakness. He's planting the wrong seeds for me. I want to be. I don't want to fly. So he's a fly. So someone said to me last night, so you've been single for 2 years and you're on these dating apps. What's going on? How come you're still single? I said, because I'm looking for bees. I'm looking for bees or flies that want to hang out with bees. That's what I'm looking for. So it goes back to the power of our words is creating what's coming next, right? It's what are you planting? What are you planting? Get out of your stinking thinking. You have 17 seconds to stop complaining. And research says you have to, after 17 seconds, you have to bring your self-esteem back up. You have to say at least 5 positive things about yourself. And if you, after 17 seconds, if you add on a negative thing, another negative thing, you create momentum. And when you create momentum, then it's hard to stop the negativity. And you may talk about this, so excuse me if you do.
No, I'm just fascinated listening to everything that you're saying. I want, though, to focus on how we can become better at spotting when somebody's lying to us, at spotting, because I think that there's a lot of, in the work that you and I do, you often find somebody after the heartbreak, after the cheating, after somebody has lied to you. And what I would love for you to help us understand is how can we get better at spotting the signs that, based on decades of research, based on your expertise, the signs aren't lying. Like, we can lie to ourselves and we can make excuses for the way people are treating us, and we do all the time. And you always say, stop listening to what people are saying and start looking at how they're treating you, because that's the truth about how they feel about you. But the signs don't lie. And half the time, people shrugging their shoulders or folding in their lips or kind of sending these body language signals, they don't even realize they're doing it because the signs don't lie. And so what are the big ones that we have to be aware of? Yeah.
So if I can just put a cap on that last part of understanding yourself, there are body language moves you can do to be seen as confident and powerful. One is, I'm doing it now. If you're seeing me, it's called steepling. And you'd see Mr. Burns do this. It's fingertips to fingertips, making like a church steeple. When we steeple people, we intimidate people. The higher the steeple, the more intimidation. So it's a sign of confidence. So a nice low steeple, especially if you're a woman in a meeting and men are like over talking you, instead of saying, let me finish with a palm down gesture, like you're the police on a raid and telling people to get on the ground. If you just lean back and steeple, someone else at the table will quiet down the people who are interrupting you. So that when we steeple people, we intimidate people. It's a sign of confidence.
Let me ask you a question about that.
Yeah.
So just so everybody listening gets this, because I think this is critical. You're in a meeting at work, or you're at a family dinner, or you're out with a bunch of girlfriends or whatever, and people are talking over you. You're saying that instead of raising your hand or stop talking over me or continuing to talk, if you lean back, you put your fingertips together and make kind of like a church steeple or a triangle, and you lean back in your chair. And then you stare at the person who is talking over you, or what do you do?
Well, you could either stop looking at them or look at their forehead. And you would think that they don't feel it, but when someone's being disrespectful, if you look at their forehead, it can change it. I don't want to get into some advanced stuff, but I'll tell you this. When we talk to people, I talk out of my right eye into your left eye because you're opposite me, right? So I'm talking primarily out of my right eye. All human beings, doesn't matter if you're righty or lefty. We talk out of our right eye into your left eye. If I want to intimidate you because I don't like your behavior or the inappropriate things you're saying, my right eye will go diagonal to your right eye. And when you can do this to a waitress and they come to take your order, and you just focus your right eye to their right eye. So you're going to go diagonal, and they'll start to pacify. You'll see them fix their hair, touch their throat, because it's this little hidden power that we have. So you can look at someone's forehead. You can look out of your predominant right eye here as you're talking to someone's left eye, diagonal, crossing, and then that steeple, or just stop looking at them altogether and stop giving them your attention. And the steepling, someone else at the table, whether it's professional or personal, will say, hey, Mike, hey, Jeff, hey, Susan, stop interrupting her. Let her finish. You know, I like to say, do you want to be right or do you want to be effective? In the old days, I would be like mouthy, and I'd be like, attitudey. But I would always leave. I was always the bad guy walking out of the meeting, and I got sick of being the bad guy. And I'm like, okay, I need to be more effective here. My mother taught me steepling. She was a nurse. She's since passed. And I had a boss that used to point, and she'd be like, Richard, my office now. Marjorie. She'd walk into this pool of people at desks, and they became cartoon figures. Their eyes popped out of their head, and they looked full of fear. And I called my mother. I was 25. I was in the World Trade Center in New York. And I go, Mom, my boss does this aggressive thing. If she does it to me, I'm mouthy. I'm going to lose my cool job with ATF. My mother was a nurse for elderly homeless people, Mel, in Boston, Committee to End Elderly Homelessness, and at Mount Auburn Hospital in Cambridge. I went home, 5'2", I'm 5'9", she's a peanut. She goes, I want you to do this. This is before I knew it was called steepling and fingertips to fingertips. And I go, what's that called? She goes, I have no idea. I just know when a doctor says, my mom was Lorraine, can I talk to you about the last patient? She goes, I always feel like I'm in trouble. So lo and behold, Colleen, my boss at the World Trade Center, did it to me 2 months later. Janine, my office, she pointed at me, was aggressive. I pulled out Mom's move, which I now know is called steepling. Oprah Winfrey does it all the time. I walked casually behind Colleen with my steeple. When I went into her office, had you been there, you would have heard her say, do you know why I called you in my office? And with my steeple in hand, I responded the way Mom told me. I said, I have a pretty good idea, Colleen. She goes, why? I go, I'm exceeding all your expectations. As you might imagine, she's like, what? I'll do that at the end of the year in an evaluation. I gotta spread it out. I love attention from my boss, still steepling. Every now and then call me in and I'll come skipping in. I come in early, I stay late. I know I'm exceeding your expectations. Isn't that why you call me in? She didn't know what to do. I worked for her for 3.5 years. She never called me in her office again. The reason she had called me in that day was to bully me. And when I said, why did you call me in? She said, I just want to see how you're enjoying living in New York City. She was a bully boss. So if you have bully bosses and bully people in your life, pull out that steeple, because when you steeple people, you have power over people.
Does it work with a spouse or somebody you're dating?
Yes, and kids. Yeah, they feel like they're in trouble. Yeah, so if you want to make them feel like they're in trouble and that you're not going to be pushed around easily, 100% steeple.
Steeple. I love it. It's almost like a little shield that you're creating. It's like you can become your own superhero, superpower when you steeple. It's like Wonder Twins unite and they used to hit their fists. Like you're now creating a force field. You are in charge when you put the steeple up. I absolutely love that.
I love the steeple. Do you know Desiree Gruber? Have you ever met her?
No.
So she's in New York City. She came up with the idea marketing company of the Victoria's Secret fashion show back in the day. And by the way, Victoria's Secret initially didn't want it. And then when they had it, it blew out the internet. It was the first time the internet crashed, was the Victoria's Secret fashion show. And Victoria's Secret wasn't happy at first. And then the publicity exploded. Victoria's Secret fashion show with the wings and the lingerie. Well, she once sent me a picture. She's a client, and she sent me a picture of her steepling in the Oval Office in the White House because she said she was nervous with all those heavy hitters. So she brought her steeple out in the Oval Office. Nancy Pelosi, all these people were there.
That's pretty cool.
When you're nervous, steeple, you can fake it there. So, and the other move I wanted to say is a chin grab. Indra Nooyi is the former CEO of PepsiCo. I love Indra Nooyi. Google her if everyone doesn't know who she is. Indian. She was raised in India. She has a sister. Her mother used to, every night at the dinner table, have her and her sister debate. You're running for president of the United States. You're running for prime minister of Australia. And they would debate. She grows up, becomes a female CEO of PepsiCo.
Wow. Maybe that's what I did wrong. I've just been going, get your elbows off the table.
To your kid. So when she does an interview, look at Indra Nooyi, she grabs her chin, and I say, when we grab our chin, we're about to win. Take a picture of yourself. How do you normally sit? And now take a picture of yourself holding your chin. Look how much more intelligent we look. We look like we have a master's degree. We look like we have it all figured out.
I literally look like I just won the Pulitzer Prize. And see, here I figured I was holding my chin because it's very pointy. I don't really like it, so I'm kind of hiding it. But it does look very.
Well, can I tell you what your pointy chin means?
Yeah, what is my pointy chin?
It's like a shovel, and a pointy chin, you can take something on the chin. And a pointy chin is like a shovel, and that you will fight for people. You will fight. You'll have that determination, is that chin right there. And so
wow. So can you I have to just tell you a quick story. Yeah. When my husband was in the restaurant business, we couldn't go out to another restaurant and actually have a nice date. Because the man would be so preoccupied. Oh, there's 40 seats. There's this many waiters. Like he was just in the language of running a restaurant. So he wasn't. I
can reverse engineer what he does with his body language based on you telling me that. Would you want me to tell you what he does with his body language?
Yeah. But what I was going to say is, can you actually be with other people and not be decoding them?
Like that movie where Jim Carrey becomes God. All right. And he turns it into sticky notes. And then he turns it into an email system. Some things I can't unsee, but I have ADD, so sometimes I'm daydreaming and not paying attention. So if you prime me in advance to decode whoever you're with, then I'll see it all. Otherwise, I'm kind of not really paying. I can't unsee what we're about to talk about, detecting deception. I can't unsee the detecting deception hotspots I'm going to share with you.
Okay.
I can't unnotice them. So we'll go over those in a second. But I'm going to reverse engineer what your husband does, and I've never met him. I don't know him. I know about, one business was doing well. He opened up another one and didn't do so well, and another one didn't so. Yes. And then I know your story about this rocket ship. So I wanted you to do a test, and you at home, anyone who pays attention to all the details, like Mel's husband, right? All these little teeny details. I want you to watch how they drink their water tonight at dinner, or tomorrow at breakfast, or today at lunch, whatever time you're listening to this amazing Mel Robbins podcast. And I'm going to tell you what they're going to do with their water. These detail-oriented people, and by the way, I am not one of them, is when they drink their water, Mel, I want you to notice this with your husband. What's his first name?
Chris.
All right. He's going to drink his water. When he puts the glass or the bottle on the table, he's going to watch it until it hits the table. When he goes to pick up the bottle, he's going to look at the bottle, keep looking at it as he grasps the bottle. He's going to keep looking at it, grasp the bottle. People like me, who are not detail-oriented, what I do is I see the table, I look down where the table is, I grab my bottle of water, but I'm still looking at you. So I look just to see, oh yeah, my water's still there. I look at the water, and then I look back at you, and I pick it up without looking at the water. And now I'm looking at you, and I put it down without looking at the table. I figure gravity and the thing I just picked it up from are still there. Detail-oriented people, they have a magnifying glass. It's like Inspector Clouseau or Sherlock Holmes. And so when they talk to you, Jimmy Fallon, Amy Schumer, Jennifer Lawrence, their humor, all three of those people, are about the details. They remember words from movies and words from songs. Watch them in interviews, right? They will talk. They're like smart bombs. So it's not just the water, it's all their energy is directed in one area. So Jimmy Fallon will talk and his hand points up and his eyes point up. You see Jennifer Lawrence, hi, nice to meet you, with a handshake in her head. I feel like I can't get away from their energy. If you're talking to me and all of a sudden, if Chris, your husband, was doing this, I'd be like, whoa, detail oriented, aren't you? You like to research the research and then recommend more research. And watch how they put the drinks down. I'm speaking today at a company called Paylocity, and 2 of their big executives, I watched them last night at their little cocktail hour, and I secretly videotaped them.
Oh my God. Are you going to play it during your keynote?
Oh yeah, I went up and asked for permission today. But as they drank their water, they watched it till it hit the table as if like, hi, I'll be right back. You made it. And I said, are you detail oriented? Do you love to research the research? To executives. They go, yes. How do you know that? I go, simply by how I watched you drink your water. I said, if I put a coaster on the table and it was crooked, would you adjust the coaster? Both said 100%. So in meetings, if you're listening and you're a business person, especially sales, make sure you have coasters crooked on the table. Now, some people who aren't detail oriented may just fix it because it's irritating, but watch if they watch their glass when they put it down all the way till it hits the table. Someone like me, when it hits the table, my eyes are back on you. It's not even looking at where it's
What
going.
does that tell you about how to sell to them?
It says they want lots of detail. 2 things. 1, they're going to want lots and lots of details. That's number 1. Number 2, in your emails, if you're detail oriented, your emails are probably too long. And someone like me, I'm never going to read your emails. I'm going to pick up the phone and call and say, okay, what do I need to know about this event? What's the dress code? Where is it? What you need to do if you're detail oriented in your emails or text messages at the top, think like Twitter. Here's what you must know. Here's the 3 things you must know. Additional information is below. Someone like me who's not motivated by details, I don't look at the water when I put it down or pick it up. I need to do the opposite. Here's what you need to know. Boom, boom, boom. Here's a link to additional information if you'd like to explore on your own. Fun things to do while you're in Orlando. Here's a link. Hotels you can stay in Orlando. Here's the link. Broadway, shows you can see in New York. So if you understand people's behavioral fingerprints, and there's a bunch of things, maybe I'll come back and play again and answer questions. You can sell to them differently. You can raise the kids differently. You can understand them. There's 7 billion people, 7 or 8 billion in the world. 26 billion different behavioral fingerprints.
Oh my God. Now I'm overwhelmed. You know which ones I want to focus on?
Yeah.
Deception.
Here we go. Shoulder shrug. A shoulder shrug we talked about earlier is uncertainty. When I say, hey, Mel, what do you want for lunch? A salad, a BLT? I don't know. What do you want? A shoulder shrug makes sense there. Your verbal says, I don't know. And your nonverbal says, I don't know. It's congruent. But when I say, hey, Mel, your favorite TED Talk of mine is blank, and I shoulder shrug, it does not mean I don't like that talk. But it does indicate there's something I'm uncertain about. Ask me if I ever cheated on my husband when I was married to him.
Did you ever cheat on your husband when you're married to him?
No. Now, I said no, and for people who are listening, I shrugged at the same time, and that's why Mel's laughing. But it doesn't mean I cheated. See, that shrug means, Mel, you opened a file in a cabinet that says top secret of something I don't want to share with you. Oh. And maybe what I don't want to share is that he cheated on me, and I'm called the human lie detector. Hypothetically, he cheated on me. Hypothetically, he went on Tinder 2 days before Christmas, and my friend told me because he showed up in her account. Hypothetically. So the shoulder shrug doesn't mean I'm canceling what I'm saying, but it does mean there's something I'm uncertain about. And I may not even realize it yet. Why? Because you have a 5-second advantage over my brain. I don't even realize I'm uncertain about something right now. But if you can spot it, you can simply say, I call it MIW formula. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong here, Mel, but it seems to me, or it feels to me that you're uncertain about something. And then let the person say, well, yeah, I just was in the bathroom and I overheard a woman saying her significant other stepping out on her. And she's devastated. And it's not my story to tell. But when you asked if I cheated on my husband, you kind of open a file to just cheating in general. So that's why I was uncertain.
Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you. So make sure you subscribe. Mwah.